have been starting over from nuclear winter absolute zero.
People want and they hope for growth. They remember what Braddock was, a bustling business district.
Braddock, Pennsylvania will never see those days again, but people here are seeing positive change.
It feels pretty good to be able to walk down the street and not be scared away.
I had this dream in my head that I would have this store. People would walk in and get things for free.
I'm one resident that love it and I'm enjoying it.
We see a lot of potential here, so we see it as being able to get in on the ground floor.
UPMC does not care!
But with change comes challenge, keeping businesses from moving out.
UPMC leaving, it's frustrating.
While making sure residents benefit in the transition.
My hope is that they don't drive out the people that have been here for years.
The playground program is about to start. Yes.
Community leaders are determined to make it work, but can they? And can Braddock stand alone and be a destination once again?
Do we really need separate communities? Braddock and North Braddock and Braddock Hills.
The moving in part is really overstated. I mean, the population is still dropped.
With renewal comes reality, rebuilding Braddock in new, innovative ways, and making its people a part of the success.
You got to meet the needs of the people. You got to build trust with the people.
There's what it was, what it is, and what it's going to be.
Renewal and reality. Rebuilding Braddock.
Okay, let's see how this fits. The name of my jewelry is called Royale Jewelry.
Oh my goodness, yes.
When it comes to change and challenge, Shauna Dark knows not only how to survive, but thrive.
When someone gets to wear Royale jewelry, they're empowered, they're inspired, it lifts their self-esteem.
Shauna's jewelry business echoes her own story of empowerment and self-improvement. She started Royale Jewelry to help support her 7 children.
I'm not working. I was looking and interviewing for jobs, but at the moment, I'm not employed.
Still, somehow, along with the help of public assistance, she's able to make ends meet using her wits and ingenuity.
I'm able to make it because I'm an entrepreneur. I always think of how I can supplement my income. So I make jewelry. I also make slushies and sell them to the kids and their mothers and fathers, whoever buys slushies. Bop, 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 to get income to sustain my family.
It hasn't been easy for Shauna. Trying to recover from a drug addiction, she came to Braddock to get help. That was back in 1996.
I came to the House of Hope, a drug and alcohol program for women who were pregnant. It's a 90-day program.
Shauna successfully completed that program and later signed up for another, which helped her to become more self-sufficient.
You become more responsible to pay your bills and your rent, and they just follow you and help you to get your finances in order.
Shauna Dark is like many others who live here in Braddock, just over 2,000 people in a place that was once home to 10 times that many. The borough is one of Allegheny County's poorest communities. Nearly 40% live below the poverty line. 64% of people rent, not own their homes. One day, Shauna was driving through Braddock and caught sight of this house.
And the men were outside working, and the door was open, and I walked in. And I was like, this is my house. It's big enough for me and my kids. I went upstairs, I looked at all the rooms. I said, here's $700, and I need you to hold this for me.
Shauna loves this house and hopes someday to buy it from the owner.
I'm working on it. I tell them I want the house. You know, I tell them I just want to stay and do the best that I can, do what I need to do on my part, and I'll get it.
That's the kind of confidence, determination, and drive Shauna has. The same drive she uses to make sure that every one of her children finishes school, some even college. All but 3 are now out of the house.
One is in college. She's at Penn State. And one just graduated from Imani Christian Academy. And I still have a 15-year-old son who is in the 9th grade.
Shauna is in school too at the Community College of Allegheny County.
I attend CCAC for social work. I'm going to transfer to Geneva or Chatham for their social work program.
Upon completion, Shauna will get an associate degree.
And then I'll have the certificates in family intervention, drug and alcohol, case management, and social work specialist.
In the meantime, her priorities remain to find work, to continue to support her family and the community where she lives. She likes the changes she sees taking place in Braddock, and she's supportive of the mayor, John Fetterman.
He's been friendly and up close and personal with the community. You know, he walks around, talks to people. He's done good here. You know, I like change.
Change does take time. I don't think this is a process that I envision happening in 5 or 10 years.
John, the mayor, has made a lot of changes, but it's going to take more.
Change is happening in Braddock.
I think it's important to change perspective. We want people to start looking at it differently.
Some of the evidence is along Braddock Avenue, the town's main drag.
How I've seen it change, I've seen new development. I'll start with that.
Where dilapidated buildings once stood, you'll see some bright new modern places and new businesses too.
Businesses are opening up here, things are turning around.
But the Braddock of today is a far cry from the energetic town it used to be, a town where commerce once thrived.
Three movie theaters of clothing stores, toy stores, novelty shops. You had a card shop. I think there were 280 stores in Braddock. You had bookie joints.
And plenty of churches too, as many as 45 religious congregations. Most have disappeared.
We had AME Zion right there on the corner. We had the Catholics at the Sacred Heart. We had the Lithuanians there. We had 2 synagogues. Over the years, the Jewish individuals had moved out.
But what hasn't left Braddock?
There was a battle fought here in 1755 between the British and French empires.
And can never be taken away is its rich history.
French and the Indians defeated the Braddock expedition in a major shock to both the colonies and to Europe. So General Braddock died as a result of this battle. This community ended up being called Braddock's Field, which got shortened eventually to Braddock.
A century later, Braddock's Field would become the site of another history-making event.
1870 set off what became a century of steel throughout Pittsburgh. Behind us, the Edgar Thomson plant was Andrew Carnegie's first steel plant.
And around that plant, a town sprang up where men who worked in the mill lived with their families.
People were able to make decent living working in the mill.
Tony Buba should know his father Edward worked as a welder at the Edgar Thomson Works for more than 40 years. Tony grew up here during the 1940s and 50s and is well known in these parts. He's a producer and director who's made this Mon Valley town the frequent subject of his documentaries.
Growing up in a mill town, the mill was blasting out. It was dirty, but it was, it was a lot of fun growing up as a kid. Brother and I would walk to Hamilton School, went to Braddock High School, graduated in 1961, and saw the town going through all the changes.
Tony has seen Braddock at its best and its very worst, but he never left the area, choosing instead to chronicle his hometown, an American melting pot.
The population peak was 1920, 20,000 people. When I was growing up, it was already down to around 10 or 12,000. You had a large population of, Polish, Italian, every ethnic group there was, plus a large African-American community. Most African-American were concentrated in an area called the Bottom, which was down by the mill.
In the 1950s, though, the bottom of Braddock was torn down and black residents looked for other places to live.
So people that were working in the mill lived in the bottom, then bought homes on 5th Street, 4th Street, and different areas in Braddock, and then white flight started taking place. And you saw the population going down.
White families fled to nearby suburbs, which were springing up as a result of the construction of a new roadway, the Parkway East.
So that gave direct access to Monroeville and the farmland that was out there and Penn Hills, and people started building those homes. Of course, it was only white people moving those homes because of redlining. So African Americans could not get a mortgage to leave Braddock to move to the suburbs. So they ended up buying other homes in Braddock.
But there was another reason why families were moving out of Braddock.
It was never a community where people looked that was going to be their final stop. You made enough money, you wanted to move, because nobody wanted to live next to a mill. People didn't want to breathe in those pollutants.
The collapse of the steel industry in the 1970s and 80s hit the Monongahela River Valley hard. Plants in nearby Duquesne, Rankin, and Homestead were shut down. Edgar Thompson in Braddock survived, but new technologies meant far fewer workers. Chris Bream is a regional economist at the University of Pittsburgh.
The steel industry had been here for a century. Steel started to be made elsewhere in the country, started to be made elsewhere in the world.
With more people jobless, some residents were also caught up in a crack cocaine epidemic. Arrests making headlines meant more people moving out.
Braddock was broken. They had the state police patrolling it.
Unable to pay its bills, Braddock was designated a financially distressed municipality under Act 47.
Pennsylvania created Act 47 to prevent municipalities from going into literal bankruptcy, being unable to pay their bills. People call it a pseudo-bankruptcy. The problem is, communities like Braddock that have gone into Act 47 there's been no viable way out. There's no magic wand.
Braddock had hit rock bottom, but the town began to slowly fight its way back with help from foundations, corporations, and the government. Enter a new generation of people determined to get Braddock back on its feet. When John Fetterman arrived here in 2001, it was a much different community. He's now the mayor of Braddock.
Most of the buildings were abandoned, and many of them were in such poor condition that they were actually falling into the streets. It was a much more violent place.
I want a small Italian hoagie.
Shauna Dark can testify to that.
All right, see you. It was bad. It was full of crime. I was always scared for my children and other people's children.
Shauna wouldn't let her kids play outside, not even in her own backyard.
It was mainly gun violence. A couple people killed on this street. I think I was paralyzed with fear.
But despite the crime, Shauna stuck it out and stayed in the neighborhood.
I still didn't want that to move me because I was only going to pick up and leave and go to another neighborhood that was the same way. Because did I have enough income to move in a neighborhood where that type of activity wasn't so prevalent, but I didn't. So I stayed, and I felt like God's going to stop all this violence.
Things did get better, in part because of increased targeted police patrols and surveillance cameras in problem areas.
It's good because you feel a little bit safe, but then you feel like you have no privacy. But you have to weigh it. Would you rather that, or would you rather have the crime back? So I'd rather have that. If that's what's going to bring peace to the community, if that's what's going to allow the children to run up and down the street and ride their bikes, then so be it.
Nobody's going to move to your town, let alone set up a business or invest in your community if they don't feel safe.
21 Alpha 1.
In a 5-year period between 2008 and 2013, the town didn't record a single murder.
Mothers aren't losing sons, children aren't losing fathers. The public safety is the most important thing in our community.
There are still drug busts, burglaries, and several recent murders, but things are much better than before.
It's quiet, and it feels really good to be able to go outside and sit on your porch and not have to worry about grabbing all your kids and running in the house.
Beyond the violence, another priority was tearing down more than 200 abandoned buildings and making Braddock people-friendly once again.
Starting since 2006, we have playgrounds, we have basketball courts, we have a new community center. The library has become a national landmark. We have had businesses move in.
While some other businesses have moved out,
UPMC does not care!
UPMC Braddock was one of them. In 2009, the hospital announced it would close its doors for good. Anger and protests followed.
I read the articles. This is all about greed. This is about money, not about human beings.
I'm here to support the mayor and council and all the people that live in this Braddock region to try and keep this hospital open.
But UPMC did shut down the facility, citing multi-million-dollar losses and declining patient admissions. 600 jobs were transferred to other UPMC facilities. But the ordeal left Braddock with an ever-widening image problem. An image of a town sinking even deeper into economic collapse.
I really thought that Braddock might have a turnaround. The hospital was there. They built a new senior building next to the hospital. There was a plan to put a walkway from the senior building to the hospital. And so things were looking like they were going to take off. Then boom, the rug was just pulled right out of it with the closing of UPMC.
UPMC leaving, they made the choice that they wanted to make. And I think we need more equity in the equation. We in Braddock and some of the communities out here in the Mon Valley, we can't forget about us either.
Years later, the people here still haven't forgotten.
Taking out the hospital, you lose jobs, you lose more things that they shouldn't have lost, okay? But people here care. They care about their community. They care about what's going on.
It was the largest employer and really left a gap, a hole in the community. So we had to find a way forward from that.
Eventually, the hospital was torn down. Another company, Allegheny Health Network, would build an urgent care facility nearby.
The reality is 90% of our buildings are gone, 90% of our populations are gone, houses, what have you. So we have been starting over from nuclear winter, absolute zero in terms of housing stock, in terms of financial resources, in terms of economic development.
And in terms of basic conveniences that many communities might take for granted, there are a couple of meat markets here, Variety and other small food shops, but for now, no supermarket or even a gas station.
You got to drive to Swissvale, and you have to drive to Homestead to the gas station, or you have to drive to East Pittsburgh. And I feel like Braddock Avenue, when you first come in, should have a gas station down there.
Add to the challenges the school system. The borough's own district folded years ago and was incorporated into the Woodland Hills School District, which ranks near the bottom in test scores among Western Pennsylvania districts. In 2014, the Pittsburgh Business Times listed Woodland Hills as 98th out of 105 schools in the region. Certainly not the most attractive selling point for people wanting to move into the area.
If you want Braddock to be successful, it has to be a place that people want to live. And again, it goes back to what's here. It's location, 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 as our real estate friends would say.
But efforts are underway to make Braddock appealing to investors who might want to locate their businesses here. Tina Doucet is president of Braddock Borough Council.
There have been a number of factors that have changed the mindset and how people perceive and see Braddock. Some has come from our new mayor. John, he has a narrative that's appealing to many, but we've been working behind the scenes doing things that quite often, others don't realize, changing our zoning. We had an antiquated ordinance that spoke to horses and buggies, so there are opportunities for new businesses.
And new developments, too. Borough Council worked closely with the Redevelopment Authority of Allegheny County to build the Overlook, an apartment complex on the former UPMC site.
When we did Overlook, there were over 300 applications for 24 units. And that was an indication that people wanted to live in the community. And even prior to that, when we developed some single-family homes, I think initially the county said, oh, it's a soft market, they may not sell. They were sold, many of them, before the development was done. So that's a real indicator that this is a location that's desired.
Desired especially by landlords and home renovators.
Wow, look at the flowers. They're looking great.
Karen Suey and her partner Marty Taube renovated this house on April Way so they could rent it out.
We just started Dove Partners in December, and this is our first foray into rehabbing houses.
Both Karen and Marty have other jobs, but they saw Braddock as a place of opportunity that they couldn't pass up.
As fledgling investors and with limited means, there are only so many areas that you can go into in the Pittsburgh area that are as affordable, where you can pick up houses, you know, at a low dollar value. The market for real estate in the area has been down, so we see it as being able to get in on the ground floor. This is actually the master bedroom. We put in new carpeting and fresh coats of paint.
I actually considered Wilkinsburg. There's a lot of development going on there, but the taxes are so high. And again, like Marty said, there's just so many opportunities here.
Karen and Marty actually bought 2 houses in Braddock. This one is more than 100 years old.
Structurally in good shape, but definitely need to be updated, you know, change the colors, change the countertop. A lot of cosmetic work.
And a lot of potential renters, too. They had a waiting list of people looking for good housing at reasonable rates. But why rent when the couple could sell?
We don't think that Braddock has peaked in terms of real estate value, so we think given time, it might make more sense to sell the house. But at this point, it seemed like renting was the better way to go.
Once the steel industry collapsed, right, real estate markets collapsed pretty strongly. It's been a very depressed real estate market, so people choosing Braddock for very different reasons than they might have done in the past.
Residents like Shauna Dark are glad that homes are being rehabbed, but there's a term that often surfaces when a poor neighborhood is in transition. It's called gentrification.
I see it happening. I don't like it.
That's when more affluent people move into low-income neighborhoods, buy and renovate homes. Property values improve, but poorer people can't afford to live there anymore.
My hope is that they don't drive out the people that have been here for years. There's really nothing that I can do but make sure I'm not moved out, you know, and educate the people so that they won't have to be moved out.
Take a look at the new cabinets that we've actually moved or relocated.
Karen and Marty are aware and don't take the concerns lightly.
I think we've been very sensitive to that.
We're certainly not trying to up the rent or anything, so I think it's going to be a very affordable home for someone to live in.
The lure of inexpensive, available space is also a big draw for young business entrepreneurs like Asa Foster. He's co-owner of the Brew Gentleman Beer Company, just across the street from the Overlook Apartments.
So we opened with a bit of a bang and expanded pretty rapidly in terms of seating.
The success of this microbrewery might surprise some, but not Foster and his business partner, Matthew Katase, who are both CMU graduates.
There's a lot that breweries can do in terms of economic revitalization. One of the big first steps to getting Braddock back on its feet is teaching people that Braddock is an awesome place to come down and hang out.
So who hangs out at the brew pub?
Folks from all over the Mon Valley area. We get a lot of suburb folks, we get a lot of city folks.
So just say your first line.
Let me tell you a story.
That's it, man.
That's it.
Several blocks away, Barebones Productions founder Patrick Jordan prepares to put on his very first play in Braddock.
So even though my bare feet almost never touch the earth, I feel a magic connection to the earth.
I wanted to just do a single play down here for several years, and things always fell through.
But then Patrick saw this empty warehouse space in a building partially occupied by Mayor Fetterman's family and quickly realized it would make the perfect performance venue.
We were in here one day and I looked up and I saw that the ceiling was high and there was all this dead space in the back. And I said, you know, a theater might work here.
And not just a theater. In another part of the building, work is underway on a new restaurant with an unusual name.
Superior Motors was one of the first indoor car dealerships in the country. It's unlike any other restaurant name. People won't confuse us with anyone else.
Chef Kevin Sousa is known for other restaurants he once ran in transitional neighborhoods like East Liberty and Garfield. But Superior Motors may be his biggest venture yet.
I've paid a lot of debt down to get myself set up for this venture, taking on new debt. And you know, this is my whole life. We moved our family here.
Taking chances and raising money are big challenges. Kevin, Asa, and Patrick relied on Kickstarter campaigns to help raise revenue. Another organization, Braddock Redux, also helps fund projects that bolster the community.
Braddock Redux is just a 501c3 that serve as a vehicle for a lot of the redevelopment projects that we have going on here. Playgrounds, the community center, the restaurants, the Unsmoke art gallery space, the theater space, downstairs Barebones.
Other programs like heritage community initiatives have provided jobs, education, and transportation for hundreds of children and families. Braddock Farms is the community's single largest source of fresh produce.
I found the address, yay!
And one of Braddock's most successful and appreciated ventures is the Free Store, which means everything in it is just that, free. Giselle Fetterman, the mayor's wife, runs the Free Store.
The only rules are be kind, take only what you need and pay it forward. We average about 400 shoppers a week, which is about $1,600 a month, and they're coming from all over the county.
Shauna Dark likes the idea of people helping people. Whenever she takes from the Free Store, she also gives to the Free Store.
I want to give back. So there's always something that you can give away or that you're going to throw away. So I'll take it to the Free Store. It might not be brand new, but it will be new to somebody else.
In a community challenged by the lack of adequate tax dollars, what is reviving this place is innovative thinking, and there's certainly not a lack of that here in Braddock. But questions linger. How long will recovery take?
There's not a 5-year plan that's I keep in a safe where it's like, okay, next year we're going to do X, Y, and Z.
Little by little, we will grow, and every step along the way is important.
But some raise an important point. Can Braddock remain as an independent borough?
Do we really need separate communities, Braddock and North Braddock and Braddock Hills?
Merging these communities is not exactly a popular idea. But what's a fact here in Braddock is that people are working hard for change that will benefit everyone and not just a few.
My hope is that the people in the community would take ownership of the community. I don't think that we have to be driven out, and I don't think that we have to move out. I think that we have to move up. You know what I mean? Move up in our thinking.
You know, the lives of the people in these communities matter. What I want for Braddock is that we continue to become an example of a way a community can build itself back from, you know, the brink of almost extinction.
Quit dreaming and just do it, you know what I mean? And so we have the opportunity to do something